Hello class, today's video is about solving systems of equations algebraically. There are two ways that we do that algebraically. There's elimination, we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about substitution. So elimination first. When you're trying to solve through elimination, you need to multiply by a constant to make the variable the same number but a different sign. So you have two equations, you're going to take one of them, and you're going to get the variable to be the same by multiplying. Then you're going to add the equations together. And when you add the equations together, something should cancel out. One of the variables should cancel out. Then, after the variable is canceled, you need to solve what's left for the remaining variable. And then once you get that answer, you're going to plug that back in to find the other variable. So let's look at the steps of how we do elimination. Alright, if I want to do elimination to solve for x and y with this system of equations, and I can tell it's a system because the bracket is tying these two equations together, I need to multiply. The first step is to multiply one of the equations to make the variable parts the same. So as I look at this, I'm looking for what can I multiply by so that either the x's will be the same or the y's will be the same. So 5 and 7 are not really multiples of each other, but if I multiply the top equation by 2, I can get 2 times 2 would be 4, and I would have a positive 4 and a negative 4. That would be great. That's what I want to do. The first step is going to be to multiply the top equation by 2. When we multiply the top equation by 2, we have... Please notice that when we multiply the top equation by 2, the bottom equation I just copied exactly the same. I copied it again. Now the second step is to add the two equations together. Now when we add them together, one of the variables should cancel out. The whole reason that we multiplied was that so we would have something the same so that they would cancel. And that's where this gets its name. These variables are eliminated. Alright, so when we add those cancel. Then the next step, after we've added them together, is to solve what's remaining to solve for that variable. So now we're going to go ahead and solve this by dividing by 17, and we get the answer that y equals 1. Alright, now that we've got y is 1, the last step is to plug this back in to find the other variable. Now it does not matter where you plug it back into. You could plug it back into any spot at all that has an x in it. So you could plug it in here, or here, or here. But I'm going to plug it into this equation because that one looks the easiest. Alright, so I have replaced the y with a 1, which is the answer we got right here. And we go ahead and solve that and to figure out what x is. Subtract 5 to the other side. Divide by 2. So our answer is 5, 1. This is the point where these two lines intersect. Alright, so going back, how did I do that? The first step was I took one of the equations and I multiplied by a constant to get the variable to be the same. That was the first step. The second step, I added the two equations together. The third step, I solved what was remaining for the variable. And then the fourth step, I took my answer that I got and I plugged it back in to find the other variable. Alright, let's look at substitution next. Okay, so when we're doing substitution, we start with the same kind of thing, two equations. We have to take one of them, and the first step is to solve one equation for a variable, x or y, whichever one, solve for one variable. Then you're going to plug that into the other equation. Third step, solve for the remaining variable. After you plug back in, you only have one variable left. Go ahead and solve for that. And then, once you get that answer, you have to go back and plug that in to find the remaining variable. So, let's look at an example of how to do these steps with substitution. Okay, here's an example for substitution. And first of all, I would like to point out that you could do this by using elimination if you chose to multiply the top equation by positive 2. Then the y's would be the same and you would have 2 and 2 and you could solve it through elimination, right? But we're going to do substitution this time. So to do substitution, I have to pick a variable. The first step is to solve one of the equations for a variable. Now it looks like it would be easiest for me to solve the top equation for y because it has a y all by itself here. So that's what I'm going to do first. Okay, I've chosen the top equation. We're going to solve for y by subtracting 2x to the other side. Alright, the next step is for me to take this and to plug it into the other equation. So I'm going to take this y equals and I'm going to put that in here into this bottom equation right here for y. Okay, now that I've plugged this entire equation in here for y, the next step is for me to solve for x because now this equation has only x's in it, so I can do that. So first step here is to distribute and combine like terms, add 6, and divide by 7. Okay, so now I have the answer for one of the variables. The last step is for me to take this and plug it back in to find y. So I can plug it in whichever equation I'd like, wherever I'd like to. I think I'm going to plug this into the top equation right here. Alright, and when I plug that in, 2 times 2 is 4, and subtracting 4 gives me negative 1. That means that my answer is the point 2, negative 1. The first step was for me to take the top equation and to solve for one of the variables. The next step was for me to plug this into the other equation. I took this and I plugged it into the other equation. The third step was for me to solve for x, the remaining variable. And the last step was for me to take this and plug it back in to find the other variable, y. Okay, so that's how we do elimination and substitution. Get ready to practice that tomorrow in class.